Hello, welcome back to another exciting episode. We hope you enjoy it. Oh, don't forget, if you could please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/ResslerMania. We'd really appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe. We really like seeing those numbers go up, and we appreciate everyone who has subscribed in the past, so thank you very much. Now, without further ado, on with the video. Now today we're going to see another vintage adventure video, and what that is it might be a little lower quality because it's stuff we did in the past, but it's either from VHS or some pictures in VHS, but we're really excited about this series and I hope you are too. Back in 1998 I went back to college to finish up my degree. And during that time, I did an internship with Commonwealth Media Services in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And this is one of the things we did at Drake Oil Well in Titusville, Pennsylvania. I was the production assistant on this shoot. And we went to different locations and met a lot of really interesting people. Of course, we met a few Native American people, and we did scenes right here in this shot as well. And of course we did an explosion here. That was really interesting. And yeah, look at us, we were really young. Wow. And of course at the end of the shoot, Amy right here, she finally decided and said, hey, the shoot is over. And this is the video we came up with. Enjoy.
The Earth. Its wealth of boundless energy and power lies deep within its oceans, lands, and caverns. To uncover these resources, to harness them for our benefit, remains among humankind's greatest challenges. Of all our many natural resources, oil is one of our most valuable. It is the driving force behind our fast-paced, machine-dominated society. It is the fuel of industry. From gasoline, asphalt, and jet fuel, to plastic, medicine, and polyester, today, oil is everywhere. The power of petroleum. It changed our world in unimaginable ways. And it was here in Pennsylvania, over 100 years ago, that a celebrated achievement unleashed this dominating force and gave birth to the modern oil industry. Long before Europeans settled in northwestern Pennsylvania, Native Americans understood the value of oil. They gathered it from natural springs and seeps, skimming it off the water surface. They smeared it on their wounds and swollen joints as medicine. As word of oil's miraculous benefits spread, local settlers collected it for almost every ailment. They even rubbed it on their horses to heal wounds and ward off insects. In 1849, Samuel Keir bottled the oil found in his father's salt wells near Pittsburgh. Selling it as rock oil, Keir made extravagant claims of its ability to cure almost every disease. Around the same time, kerosene was being distilled from coal, but through a complicated process. Determined to find an easier way, Keir built a one-barrel still to refine kerosene from oil. The result? Keir's carbon oil. It fueled a light brighter and cheaper than the commonly used whale oil. As the demand for kerosene grew, Keir quickly expanded to a 5-barrel still. But there was no way to meet the growing demand for kerosene without an abundant supply of oil. That's why in 1857, a company in New Haven, Connecticut, sent Edwin Drake to Titusville, Pennsylvania. His mission? To harness petroleum from their spring along Oil Creek for commercial use. For 2 years, Colonel Drake, as he was known, searched but failed to reach a large reserve of oil.
I then began looking for an experienced borer. I immediately went to Trenton and was fortunate to secure the services of Mr. W.A. Smith.
Together, Colonel Drake and that driller, known as Uncle Billy, drilled for oil, only to have groundwater flood the well. Undeterred, Drake tried again, this time drilling within an iron pipe casing. The idea worked. On August 27, 1859, at 69.5 feet deep, they struck oil. A revolutionary new industry was born. Drake's determination and effort transformed the region into a booming haven of opportunity. A rush of ambitious people with dreams of striking it rich soon followed. Land along Oil Creek was hastily bought or leased. Wooden derricks rose along the creek, blanketing the hillsides, while wells poured forth thick streams of black gold. News of the oil boom spread, and although the country was in the midst of a civil war, hundreds of people flocked to towns like Titusville, Franklin, Oil City, and Emlenton. These great flowing wells sent forth more oil than anyone had ever seen. Wooden barrels couldn't be made fast enough to contain the rising flood of oil. New towns bursting with activity sprang up around successful wells. Boom towns like Pithole, Petroleum Center, Rossville, and Funkville drew hordes of people, and the population of Titusville swelled by thousands. Pithole was perhaps the most fascinating of these towns. In 1865, oilmen drilled in secluded spots far from Oil Creek. This so-called wildcatting along Pithole Creek paid off when the Fraser well gushed oil, sparking a mad stampede. Surrounding farmland was soon transformed into a forest of derricks. Countless wells near Pithole were drilled, pouring forth 6,000 barrels a day. The town itself shot up overnight. Hotels and store buildings within a day. In mere months, Pithole ballooned to a population of 15,000, laying claim to over 50 hotels, 2 telegraph offices, and the 3rd busiest post office in Pennsylvania. These early pioneers were drawn to Pithole, their excitement growing with the discovery of each new well. But as quickly as Pithole was born, the hopes and dreams of its settlers faded and died. Suddenly, the wells dried up. Fortune seekers quickly deserted the town. Within 2 years, buildings were torn or burned down. Derricks were cleared away, and Pithole was gone. Among the most troublesome problems for the new oil industry was the primitive transportation system in this remote region, still largely a wilderness. At the beginning of the oil boom, there were no railroads into the oil region, and the early refineries were over 90 miles away in Pittsburgh. Only horse and wagon could carry the crude oil in wooden barrels over the rugged and dangerous countryside. Men known as Teamsters struggled along unforgiving roads. Slowly, they led their wagon teams through the mud, exhausted by the back-breaking load. At Oil Creek, the barrels were loaded onto barges and floated downstream to the Allegheny River. There, steamboats were loaded with oil and navigated the river to Pittsburgh. But Oil Creek was often too low for boats, so it was dammed upstream, raising the water level to create what's called a pond freshet. Downstream, men in overloaded boats impatiently awaited the release of the dam. They scrambled to maneuver through the flood of high-rushing water. Loud cheers erupted in Oil City, celebrating each time a successful pond freshet occurred. Pond freshets, however, were financially risky and difficult to stage. When things went wrong, children cleverly waited by the creek in hopes of collecting any spilled oil to sell back to the oil men. One major accident occurred on May 31st, 1864, when a misguided barge crashed into the leg of a bridge. The other boats collided with it as oil poured into the creek. No lives were lost, but many lost a small fortune. Transportation improved dramatically when railroads finally stretched from Corey to Titusville in 1862. A new line soon connected with Meadville, Franklin, and Oil City. Teamsters were still needed to move the oil to the railroads, but with growing quantities to transport, they demanded more money. So Samuel Van Sickle developed a pipeline to carry crude oil directly to the railroads. Faced with this job-threatening invention, angry and unruly Teamsters fought for their vanishing occupation. They sabotaged the line, forcing Van Sickle to hire armed guards. But the pipeline survived, pushing oil to distant refineries and Teamsters out of a job. Despite rapid growth and progress, a dangerous problem remained: fire, a constant threat when working with crude oil. Several large fires shocked the region, stealing lives and destroying vast oil reserves. Fire in the hole! Another risk was the increasingly common practice of using nitroglycerin to open oil wells. In 1865, Colonel E.A.L. Roberts patented a process to increase oil production. Torpedoes filled with nitroglycerin were detonated underground to restart old wells. But nitroglycerin also exploded easily when transported or mishandled. Despite the danger, torpedoes were highly successful and widely used. The Roberts Torpedo Company charged high fees for shooting wells with nitro. So some oilmen hired moonlighters, as they came to be known, to fill their wells at night with illegal nitroglycerin. These moonlighters, however, occasionally lost their lives in midnight explosions, or in shootouts with Pinkerton detectives hired by Roberts to protect his patent. But nothing could match the horrors that struck in 1892. Heavy, unrelenting rains poured down, collapsing a dam north of Titusville. A wall of water raced downstream. Without warning, entire families were swept away, disappearing within moments. Pain worsened. A refinery caught fire, its oil stills exploding into pieces. Tanks burst open, flooding the creek with oil. It ignited. A river of flames roared downstream from Titusville towards Oil City. Families fled as fire engulfed their homes. Over 2 days, the human and economic losses were enormous. Large sections of the cities lay in ruins. The death toll reached 125. But the spirit of those early pioneers was undaunted. They quickly set out to rebuild their homes, their businesses, and their lives. Ultimately, the early oil industry proved hardy, a bustling and thriving business. The opportunities endless, the achievements spectacular. Railroads expanded. New inventions enhanced oil refinement and drilling methods. And great fortunes were made. Indeed, it was a time of tremendous progress and growth. The Industrial Revolution was at its peak. The United States and the world embraced the machine age, and oil was a cornerstone, essential for lubricating the increasing number of complex machinery. But oil's impact was even more far-reaching. Kerosene replaced costly and less efficient whale oil. For the first time, every social class owned an inexpensive light source. And it seemed as if the days grew longer. Oil. It changed the world with just a spark. At this historic site in Titusville, Pennsylvania, America witnessed the birth of a new industry. An industry which has grown beyond imagination, with pipelines stretching to Alaska, and wells boring deep beneath the ocean floor. The oil industry has truly found a permanent place in our world. Today, the Drake Well Museum stands as a tribute to this time of great achievement, this age of unprecedented progress, this era of breathtaking advances. For it was here that Drake's innovation and patience launched an industry which forever touched our lives and changed our world.